So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming today to this session on philanthropy. Actually, the session is entitled Altruism and Goodwill. Are these truly enough for a career in philanthropy? And it's a great pleasure to have you here today, and especially to welcome our panel of experts who are going to address some of the questions related to this important topic. Before getting started, let me start with introductions of each and every one of you. I'm Giuseppe Fugazio. I am assistant professor in behavioral philanthropy at the Geneva Finance Research Institute of our university. And my work is basically using behavioral science to try to understand why people do philanthropy and how, as well as both from the individual perspective, as well as from the perspective of organizations. So why do organizations engage in philanthropy? We have a number of research projects, and we're also very, very happy to be co-directing together with our partners, Leticia Gill and Danielle Castle, this program in strategic and operational philanthropy, which is a program offered at the Center for Continuing Education of the University of Geneva. I would like now to give the floor for introductions to our panel. Tanya, I'll start with you. Please, if you want to say a couple of words to introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome again. So I'm delighted to be here with you. I am a social anthropologist by training, and I think the DAS course in philanthropy is perfect for me because it combines my two passions in life, one of which is philanthropy and the other is all things to do with impact management. In philanthropy, I set up my own foundation, an education foundation, 13 years ago, and I'm also on the executive committee of Giving Women, which is a membership association here in Switzerland and international. And we seek to make the life of girls and women around the world that little bit better. And the way we do that is through professionalizing philanthropy, by enabling our members to become better philanthropists. And in terms of my sort of other side of my life, the social impact side, I support foundations and social enterprises and NGOs, both here and internationally, to define better the impact they want to have in the world and to see how they can best measure it, manage it, and of course, maximize it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Renata, will continue with you.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Welcome, everyone. I'm Renate Bucher. I was among the first group of participants of the CAS-DAS when it started in September 2021. And after the DAS, because we were also inspired and had a really diverse, interesting group with so many professional backgrounds and experiences, we actually set up an organization called Le Cercle de la Philanthropie, to continue engaging in training, in exchanges, and in contributing to professionalizing philanthropy. And that's, yeah. In my actual day job, I work with the Swiss Foreign Ministry, and I'm specializing in migration, human rights, and development.
Thank you so much, Renata. And she came all the way from Lucerne, so very far away, to join us today. So thank you for coming. Chris, I'll continue with you.
Hello, good morning everyone, and also welcome. And I'm also a social anthropologist. We should talk later. I'm the global head of philanthropy services at the wealth management firm Pictet. I've been a philanthropy advisor to wealthy families for the past 8 or 9 years. And then before that I worked in the non-profit world in different parts of the world, in East Africa, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and the UK. Working on the front line of philanthropy, if you like, before going to the other side and helping wealthy families to achieve the best they can with the resources that they have at their disposal.
Thank you so much, Chris. I won't say thank you for coming from all the way from Acacia because it's too close, but Anthony, actually you made a very long trip. You're joining us from Hong Kong, is that correct?
Yes. Thank you very much for inviting me to join. It's a great pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm a colleague of Chris, so right now I'm with Pictet Wealth Management, but my background Also quite similar, I think I study, my background was international relations, international development. So yeah, I was trying to think of how to work on addressing the global health, poverty reduction, and the default choice initially was joining international organization or in the government, which are great choices. But then after that part of my career, then I worked had a detour. I worked in the management consultancy. I worked for McKinsey as a management consultant. So it was very business focused, but there were projects on the nonprofit sector, projects on social sector, and I think to combine those two experiences, I realized that the great impact that we could achieve by working in a philanthropic organization. So I joined one of the largest private foundations in the world, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I worked there for 7 years to work on developing strategy, managing grantees, managing grants, building partnership with different actors in the field. So I think then I joined on the bank side, to advise different families on their philanthropy. So yeah, I think it's quite a few detours in my career, but I think throughout the experience in my career, my experience, I can see that the great role philanthropy can play to help tackle different challenges in the world, and that really gave me the drive to continue to deploying my background, my knowledge about the issues, my experiencing, formulating strategy, use some of the business mindset to help tackling those issues. And I think, yeah, here's the gist of my story.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you everybody for being here. I think it's really an honor to have such a great panel that can discuss with us today about the role of developing educational programs for philanthropy and how, you mentioned it, professionalize this field. We will get into it in a second. Before then, I would like to spend a couple of words on the program. So the rest of the time we have together today is going to focus a few minutes on describing how the program is structured. We'll starting in September, and then we'll get into sort of the juicy questions that we prepared, so that we can get some insights from this fantastic panel that joined us today. So the program is actually built around a DAS, so a Diploma of Advanced Studies in Strategic and Operational Philanthropy, and for giving flexibility to participants who may want to only commit for half the time. We give the opportunity also to just focus on one of the two halves of the program by selecting a certificate of advanced studies. This basically it's comprising half of the modules that are given by the DAS. You can use the QR code if you want to go to the program to the website where you can find all the information about the program, and you also have some brochures available here and outside. Feel free, please, to take them. So a couple of words to introduce this program and the sort of unique points that we think we managed to develop with this program. First of all, it's really interdisciplinary. You could already hear from this panel. I forgot to mention before that both Chris and Tanya are actually lecturing in our program. I've been lecturing, and we hope they will lecturing in the future again. And we have really a mixture of academics, such as myself. I come from behavioral science, I work in finance, I look at artificial intelligence, but we also have academics in the fields of law, of sociology, very different backgrounds. And these are then also paired with practitioners, who are actually people who every day work with philanthropic organizations, advising them, or actually running them. We have people that work in Switzerland, people that work with an international lens. So we really try to have an interdisciplinary 360-degree overview on philanthropy. In my regular courses, my bachelor courses, I have a course called The Many Faces of Philanthropy, precisely because it's a field that, while it has some depth, it also has an amazing breadth. So we really need to take a look 360 degrees if we want to get an understanding of what philanthropy actually is and how we could learn how to do it better in a more professionalized way. This program will consist of 10 modules. That's for the DAS. The CAS has 5 modules each, and each of these leverages blended learning. So for each module, we'll have one day that it's fully online, that gives the flexibility to people to participate remotely or to synchronously also just watching videos when they have time. And then we have 2 days in person that really bring people together and allow people to interact closely with both the instructors, but also the other participants. As we heard from Renata, there was really great interactions happening that led to the formation of these associations of alumni. So we really believe there is an invaluable prestige in coming to the course in person. So we offer a mix of the two. We deliver an academic degree from the university. The DAS delivers 34 ECTS, while the CAS has 15. So far, we've been attracting participants mostly from Switzerland, but we're really surprised to see that we actually our program could attract people from as far as Dubai or Singapore. So we have participants that come more or less once per month to our course from really all around the world. But mostly the core is, of course, from Europe and from Switzerland. The backgrounds of participants is also very varied. It ranges from people who are working in family offices, people who are just interested in philanthropy, maybe in transitioning of jobs, people working for banks, and for big international organizations, for instance, the International Committee of the Red Cross. Do you have any questions on the more or less description of the program, of this quick description of the program? If you have any questions, feel free to ask at any point. So getting a bit more into the finer details of the program, as I mentioned, we have 10 modules. We start with an introduction to philanthropy and alternative financial instruments that are everyday complementing philanthropy. Chris, being an expert also in this field, it's hopefully participating again in this module, illustrating to us how the philanthropy is actually a spectrum in this financial instruments inventory. And we basically then, the first part focuses on the strategic components of setting up an organization. So depending on the means, time, resources that someone has, what is the best instrument, what are the legal requirements for these instruments, and then we go into how to also plan for the monitoring and evaluation of this, and that's where Tanya comes in. And we conclude the first CAS with a module on program management. What are the important things in program management, both from the grantor perspective and the grantee perspective. It's with the definition we give of philanthropy in our program is quite broad, and we actually don't all agree on this definition, but we do consider philanthropists both grant givers and operational organizations actually fundraise to support their systems, their operations. The second half of the program that is discussing operational philanthropy focuses a bit more on the activities that need to be done in order to run operations. We start looking at human resources, importance of diversity, and how to basically build good governance for an organization. We move into financial management and accountability, and then we have one of the quite unique modules. It's regional philanthropy, so it's really taking the perspective of how to do philanthropy of different regions of the world, and how to do philanthropy and how to build partnerships successfully, not from only a Western or Swiss perspective, but also taking into account the regional ones. We then go into communication and resource mobilization and conclude with one of the trends now in philanthropy, which is systemic philanthropy. We'll talk a bit about it more later. This is really kind of the umbrella term that is now being used for philanthropic projects that try to be as comprehensive as possible. I want to remark some important dates. The registrations for the program are already open. On the 31st of May, we have a deadline for early bird, so people who sign up before can benefit from the early bird discount. Registrations will close on the 31st of July, and then we kick off on September 1st with the first in-person day. At the beginning of that week, we will have already videos and materials available for participants that want to, for the online part of that module, so that participants can complete that component. On the 16th of December, we finish the first half, so the first CAS is concluded for those who just wish to attend the first CAS. And then on the 12th of January, we start with the second half of the DAS and the CAS in operational philanthropy, which then concludes on the 12th of May. And then the cherry on the pie is going to be a graduation ceremony that is typically held mid to end of June. Any questions from the audience? I'm checking also on Zoom if there are any questions. There are not. So if there is none, I will then move on to the, just put again the links. You can use the QR code. If you have any questions and want to email us, please use this email here. The presentation of today, the slides will be made available through the website of the continuing education of the University of Geneva. So you don't need to write it down, and it's quite easy to remember, but just so that you know. So if there are no questions, I have a few questions of my own that I would like to direct to our panel. I'll pick at random from who to start, but I'm already looking at someone to give hints. So the question we want to address in today's session is really, why do we want to have a formal training in philanthropy? My first question is, and from I heard from the introductions that each and every one of you gave, is that it seems that it was not really a training or a profession that you chose at first. It was more something else. So Tanya, can I ask you, what was kind of the thing that attracted you to the world of philanthropy in the first place?
I think it's a way of life really for me, and has been ever since I was a little girl. I think I like the way of looking of philanthropy that I've been inspired by Atalante, the founder of Giving Women, and she reminds us that philanthropy, she is Greek, that it means the love of people, and so I think that really is what philanthropy is about for me. I love the people that I engage with. I mean, look at this panel when I'm engaged in philanthropy, and all the projects that I work with around the world. They are just the best human beings ever. So that's definitely a huge part of what I love about it, is the community and communities I get involved in. And obviously, like many of us, I want to make the world a better place, and I think philanthropy is one of the good ways of doing that. And I think finally, gratitude. When one is fortunate like I am in my life, I find that being engaged in philanthropy is a way of expressing my gratitude for the life that I have. And also dealing with the difficulties in life as well. So, for example, I mentioned I started a foundation 13 years ago. It's actually in memory of my sister, my late sister. And on the 10th anniversary of her death, I was thinking, well, how do I transform, the pain that I feel, that my family feel for her loss? And that's how the Zoe Sorogeny Education Trust came about. So it's sort of putting into action strong emotions, you could say.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And Anthony, can I ask you the same question? What's sort of pulled you to philanthropy? We've heard you were working at consulting, and why the change towards philanthropy?
No, yeah, I think philanthropy, I wasn't exposed to the idea, the concept very early in my life, because I grew up in China when the government was doing everything, and there were not that many rich people who could actually do philanthropy to start with at that stage. But there was certainly a lot of needs, and then you could see that how so many people's lives could change when there's right policy, when there are good projects that can make concrete, very significant impact in a lifetime, or just in a generation. So you really believe that you can make changes to help people improve their lives. And then when there's a group of people who succeeded in the process and they would like to share their success with the rest of the society, I think there are more and more needs to understand the role of philanthropy in the society. And there's a gap in knowledge, right? Because nobody knows how to build a philanthropic organization, how to do it right, how to, what role philanthropy can play, vis-a-vis the government and the market. So I think this is, what excited me to, after learning more about it from what has happening in the rest of the world, how we can introduce this concept to China, to the region in Asia where, the sector is growing very fast. More and more people are learning about it, they're joining the sector, they want to leverage, they want to use their expertise, their commitment to make a difference. So I think that really helped, along the journey, I slowly realized that, I'm really drawn to philanthropy. I feel really fulfilled after working in a philanthropy organization, after working with philanthropists, and I can be proud of, what I do, compared with my private sector experience, which wasn't bad. It was a great experience to get skills for skill development, but the sense of fulfillment at the end of the day, it's so different, right? So I think that's why I was so attracted to philanthropy and, yeah, to answer your question.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. Renate, let's come all the way to here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I think for me, and I'm actually also a social anthropologist by training, for me it was always this sense of sharing the privilege that I have, the privileged position that I've just, I've come into this world in Switzerland, so I felt always like I have to use it to address the injustices in the world. And I've worked with non-profits, with civil society, with the UN, and with the Swiss government, and I've not for a long time thought of myself working in philanthropy. And I remember the first course that you taught of the DAS, where we tried to define philanthropy, and already that was like, okay, so am I now a philanthropist? Or so I think it showed very well that the sector is really broad. There's so many actors in it, and I've worked on several fronts or on several parts of it, and there's still so much more to learn, and so many more organizations and concepts to learn about, to still somehow use my privilege for a better world. And that's,
Thanks, Renate. Perfect timing. Chris wanted to drink, so we didn't allow him to.
Thanks, Renate. I guess for me, when I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I wanted to travel and see the world and live in different countries, and I thought the best way to do that was to work for charity. So I guess it was a selfish reason, in a sense, that I got into it. But I remember there was a really sort of pivotal moment. I was living in Tanzania, and I was working as a teacher in this small community. And one of my fellow teachers, he was telling me a story that he was one of 7 children, and his parents had essentially had to look at the 7 children and choose which one of them would be the best investment, because they could only send one to school, and that one would go on, ideally, make money and support the whole family. And that story blew me away. I thought, just because I'm a straight white man with the right passport and an education and moderate intelligence, I had every opportunity at my doorstep, and that felt wrong, that felt unfair. So that kind of led me on this path to continue working in the non-profit world for another reason, rather than just a selfish reason. And then fast forward many years, I was a fundraiser. I became a major gift fundraiser. I moved from the front line, if you like, to being a fundraiser for UNICEF. And there's a saying in fundraising, if you ask someone for funds, they'll give you advice. If you ask for advice, they'll give you funds. So I approached one of my donors and asked him for advice, hoping to get a check. But I didn't get a check, it didn't work. He actually gave me the advice, which I didn't want. But the advice was around my own career and where should I go. And he was actually a client of a large Swiss wealth management firm. And he said they had a philanthropy advisory team, and he thought I would be a good philanthropy advisor and I should check it out. And never in my life did I ever want to work for a bank. So I walked out of that meeting and was like, yeah, nice one. But his secretary then sent me a job advert, and I felt I had to apply. And long story short, I ended up moving into this role and really, truly understanding the complexities of philanthropy and the joy and the passion of people with the capacity and the desire to want to use their wealth for good, and then helping them to do that in the best possible way is just so rewarding. So that's my why.
Thanks a lot, Chris, and all of you. Maybe if I can ask to the audience, since you're here with us either on Zoom or in class, I don't want to call you, but if you want to share, why you're considering or why would you be interested in philanthropy, right? In getting in that direction, it would be great to hear also your intuitions. I don't think there is no need to be prepared, and there is no way to give a wrong answer. So if you would like to give your insights, we'd be very happy to hear from you.
Hello, I'm Valerie. I'm here because of you, because I saw the presentation online, and the dates were perfect, so I thought I'd come and check it out. I studied political science here about, I want to say 30 years ago, maybe 25. And my career was in the private sector, in the pharmaceutical. And I've always done philanthropy on the side because it was always part of the way I was living. And I'm right now in the moment of a career change, and I realize that actually you can work in philanthropy, and there's a lot to do. And I see that it's a changing world. It's becoming very professional. And I was asked to help out an association, and I realized that I really liked it. And I never thought I could work in that. And then I realized that I have some credentials and maybe some potential. And when I spoke to you, Professor, I didn't know if I could get a job out of it or not get a job. And I was a little bit insecure because it's something a little bit new, a little bit scary. And I'm very happy that you have alumni with you, because I know I can see that they're for real, and that you have real jobs. So I think it's very nice because you're also able to share your passion. And sometimes here, being in Geneva, I just moved back to Geneva after living in different places. And also seeing in America, I lived 15 years in New York, and I saw how professional the philanthropists were, how fundraising was professional. And I arrived here, and some people said, oh, you're a little bit, you're not too shy, you know how to ask for money. We want you to come and work for us, bénévole. Please come and ask for money, and you'll come and hang out with us. So it sounded a little bit, I don't want to say unprofessional, but I'd like to know more, I'd like to learn more. I'm very curious. I'm a little bit nervous because going back to school for me is, at my age, it's a little bit, I feel a bit unstable to go back to class, but I think it's a lovely program. I'm very curious. I hope I can make it. And what was it? Well, the reason why I'm here, because the feeling is amazing. I think it's a very enriching feeling, and also I think that when you give, there's like a circle. It's like, I think money also needs to circulate, and we live in a society where everything is a little bit stuck. And I believe in the circulation of giving, and also maybe showing the example, and also sharing somehow the joy and the maybe it's a selfish feeling, but it's the feeling of feeling good when you do something good. It could be something very small. It doesn't have to be millions, but I think it's with little steps that we can build something maybe a little bit stronger and better, because we are overwhelmed with so much negativity. So to put a little bit of positive is always something nice. Voilà.
Thanks a lot. Do you also want to share?
So hi, I'm Pauline. I worked at the International Committee of the Red Cross in the private sector fundraising, and I think I don't have a lot to add apart from what the panelists said, because I think I can really reflect on the fact that being born in Switzerland and the privilege that comes with it. So obviously that was one of the reasons. And then my aunt worked for 30 years for the ICRC. She went on mission abroad. So from a very young age, I used to hear stories, and that also what kind of pushed me towards this from a very young age, I was aware that the privilege I came from and that I wanted to kind of give back in a sense. So yeah, of course, very interested also too. And I hope to be able to participate to the class. And thank you very much for all the insights. It was very interesting.
Thanks, and we're just getting started. Can I also ask you?
My name is Christian. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. It gives me some hope. I studied international relations at the Graduate Institute, but I was attracted by money into banking for 22 years in private banking. So after 22 years, I thought it was not really satisfactory to me, and I thought I was lost until today. I've just heard you. So, because what I love is really international relations, but everywhere where I go, money comes as a main issue, and I am at ease with numbers on money, so I didn't know how to make both, to marry both. So I tried reconversion into teaching and diplomatic mission, but I think I'm going to consider philanthropy seriously, thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. And so, unless you want to add something else, I'll propose to move on to the second question, which is, do we really need to professionalize philanthropy? And for me as an academic, I also kind of entered the world of philanthropy only a few years ago when I moved to Geneva. Before I was working on behavioral science. And in most of the fields where I've studied or worked, you normally have sort of the standard textbook, right? The first day of class, you read pages 1 to 20, right? And then you come to philanthropy, and as an academic, I was so surprised to see there is no one reference book. There is a lot of work mainly on how to do fundraising well, but there is not so much on how to set up properly an organization. We can have debates also among the module heads and with the participants on what philanthropy is or is not. So I feel there is a bit of a lack of a structure in this field. What do you think? So do you think that professionalization is actually needed, or we've done philanthropy for a long time? If you think of the Greek origins, as you mentioned, it's been around forever. Do we really need to professionalize the field? What are your intuitions? And maybe Renate, start with you.
Thanks, Giuseppe. I mean, the short answer to that would be, if altruism and goodwill were enough, then the world would look different today. So, I mean, we need to do better. If we really want to have the impact that we all hope to have, and we need to be more professional in that. There's a lot of people who work and with all the good intentions, and we've tried for so many years. I mean, there's so many old foundations as well. There's so much money that has already been spent, but somehow with not all the impact that we should have, would have, could have had. And the discussions during the course as well with all the different people, with all their different backgrounds, were so interesting, because you could see how many ways in which you can do it, and how much it enriches myself now in my work, having heard from all the others of how, we could do it this way, we could look at it that way, but trying to bring it together to be more strategic, to look at systems, and to dare to take more risks, because you have a good understanding of what you can do, and what has already been done and didn't work, and why.
Thanks, Renate. Thanks. And Chris, let's continue with you.
It's tough to. I completely agree. I think Renate summed it up perfectly. Yes, we do. We definitely do. If you think about it, there was a study from Citibank that came out that said that there's around $2.5 trillion of philanthropic capital around the world. In the US, around 400 plus billions given away every year. In Switzerland, there's around 100 billion of assets under management in foundations. So it's a lot of money is going towards philanthropy in its many forms. But if we try and like think of the success stories of philanthropy on a grand scale, you know, we still have poverty, we still have hunger, we still have injustice, we're still destroying our planet. You know, what are those success stories? Sure, there are a few. The near eradication of polio, arguably thanks to your old colleagues, Bill and Melinda Gates, and other philanthropists. The bringing the southern white rhino back from the brink of extinction, arguably thanks to philanthropic conservationists. But in the main, you know, given the amount of money that's going towards it, not really are we seeing that many success stories. So yes, we do need to professionalize. The heart is, you know, philanthropy is quite often born in the heart. It's from experience or loss or something that makes us want to do something. But we then have to bring in the mind. I remember speaking to a philanthropic couple, a husband and wife. They had a foundation. They wanted to professionalize. I felt he wanted to professionalize. And I was saying that, you know, you have to kind of approach philanthropy in the same way we approach our businesses and think so strategically. And he got it. He really loved this. She was like, yes, but it's the passion that's there. And then, you know, but then we talked more, and she came out and was actually, yes, no, I could achieve so much more if we tweaked it here and tweaked it there. So yes, I think we do.
Thanks, Chris. And Tanya, I already know the answer because you already told us before that you think it should be, but...
Building on really what you've both said, professionalizing philanthropy, I think, is really important because more and more, certainly foundations now are not just giving money, aren't they? They're giving money and giving support and expertise as well. And indeed, philanthropy is that, isn't it? It's giving money, but also giving of ourselves and our expertise. And so when we need to be more professional in both as philanthropists, how we select where we're going to give our money and ourselves and our expertise, and also, of course, if we are going to give some money, how we can make sure that's best used. A couple of examples in what, for me, professionalizing anthropology. What examples of what, for me, professionalizing philanthropy would be, a couple of examples. One, of course, is my own field, impact management, because impact management helps you not just to sort of show the world that you are doing what you said you're going to do, but more importantly, you can learn from what you're doing to always improve what you're doing and improve your impact. So impact management is super important, I think, in professionalizing philanthropy. And secondly, something which is quite dear to me as an anthropologist and as a giving woman as well, is some of the more touchy-feely bits of professionalizing philanthropy, namely communication. And I'm thinking specifically of cultural communication or cross-cultural communication, which again I could think of in two ways that I think sometimes philanthropists can get a bit stuck. One is kind of communicating across sectors. I think many of us here have worked in different sectors, but when you have got people from the banking world or from the corporate world talking to somebody in a very different sector, there can be some misunderstandings which are very easy to clear once you're aware of them. And of course there's communication across cultures, and it can be as small as somebody arriving late at a meeting, especially when one's Swiss, to having maybe a different approach to governance and understanding that governance is something that might need to have certain cultural adaptations, for example.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. And Anthony.
Yes, speaking as a non-anthropologist, I also think that we also need to, certainly we need to professionalize. I'll give an example, like show that having good intention itself would not be enough. For example, I think in the US, it's very popular to donate secondhand, used apparels for good causes. But then people don't know where they at. They thought they're doing good deals, they're helping African countries. But in reality, what's happening is that the charities who receive those clothes, they don't need them. They don't need them because there's, at least in the US, there's no way to deploy the donated apparels. So what they did is they actually sold they sell those apparels to Africa, to the developing world, and so that they generate money for their projects. But what happened in the end is that in those countries, in many African countries, it destroyed their own apparel, like budding apparel industries. So a lot of people lost their jobs, and it actually, in the end, it wasn't helping. I mean, you could assess it from different sides. There are many different stakeholders in it. So I think having good tension would not automatically, help people. Maybe somebody else, if you don't plan it well, if you don't, do the impact management, you probably don't know how it works. Maybe it's hurting some other people, even though you have the best of your intention, right? So that's why it's important to professionalize the sector. And you can leverage your existing expertise, like, international relations. That's political science. It's a very useful skill because, how philanthropy can make an impact, a very important way to engage with policymakers to help drive some policy changes, because philanthropy could play a role that the market and the government cannot play. But philanthropy, because it's the ultimate risk capital, it's flexible, it can take risks. So some of the evidence you generate can actually inform policymakers. In the end, if there's a new policy, if there's something in the market that can make it more sustainable, right? You cannot rely on continuous philanthropic capital to keep it going. And experience of banking, if you're a banker, your interpersonal relationship, relationship management, that's also very important. If you are going to raise funds, as a fundraiser, your network, all of those things could be deployed to support philanthropy. But at the same time, it's also important to learn a bit more about philanthropy, about the issues that you want to focus on, how, the governance, the operational knowledge about, for philanthropic organizations, or if you want to work on agriculture, you want to work on nutrition, water, learn a bit more about those specific, thematic issues that you want to focus on, so you're more informed and more knowledgeable, so you can make better use of your previous expertise. So yeah, I think it's really important to professionalize the sector, and there are many different ways, and if we can, make progress in the professionalization, I'm sure the capital, the 2.5 billion or more capital sitting in the philanthropic capital sector can make greater impact over time.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, everybody. Maybe as a pushback to this all sort of uniform voices that said we need to do it, sometimes when I talk about this course, or when I talk about my research and that we're trying to help contributing to professionalize the field, I get as a sort of a comment that it's actually get mainly two comments. One, it's philanthropy should really be a matter of passion, of empathy, of me wanting to engage in it. If you professionalize it, you're kind of making it rational. You're kind of destroying the original, the sort of the main driver that should drive philanthropy. Do you see a risk of this in professionalize the sector, or is this something sort of just more an intuition that then when people realize what actually professionalizing means, doesn't really exclude one, exclude the other? I'll leave you take it.
Yeah, I think that speaks very much to what we're doing at Giving Women, which is harnessing that passion that we have and making sure that we're bringing to life that passion in a way which is impactful. So I think the two are not contradictory, but have to go hand in hand.
So I remember that it's true that if you are only focused on professionalization, and sometimes if you lost touch with the people that you're helping with, it's something that probably would not be good, because we do see a lot of organizations in the sector that are getting more and more bureaucratic when they grow, right? So, it's certainly not helpful for the sector. So I think, when I was at Gates Foundation, one of our trustees was Warren Buffett. So he said, I'm seeing the foundation is having ABC problem. We asked him, what is ABC? It's arrogance, bureaucracy, and complacency. So you see, like all of the people based in Seattle, right? They live in Seattle, they stay in Seattle, they're talking about global health, they're talking about agriculture, but they don't go to see the people that they're helping with. So I think it's always important to be close to the people you're working with, to see the impact or to see the work that you're actually supporting, so that you will always remember why you started working on this, and you will never forget, or you will never get stuck in the big machine, when a successful organization, it always keeps growing, right? So it has its side effect. But it doesn't mean that we don't need to be professionalized. I think it's not contradictory, right? You can still have the passion, but also building your capacity or capabilities to do good work.
Thanks,
at the same time.
Anything you want to add, Chris or Renate? If not, I could move on to the second, but as you want, if you want to add something, please. So the second thing that I normally get as a pushback is, and I think it's a bit related to becoming overly bureaucratic, it's that when you professionalize a field, then you sort of standardize it. You just create one model that everybody adopts, and then you sort of lose the diversity, lose the interdisciplinarity or the 360-degree view that we actually, the colorfulness, if you will, of philanthropy. Is that a risk of professionalizing, or is also that something that doesn't really exclude one the other, or imply one the other?
No, I don't think there's a risk of that. I think specifically in this space, it's the challenges the world faces are so vast and wide, and the people who are trying to tackle them are just even more vast and wide, and coming from all different backgrounds and sectors and countries, and have different ideas and different approaches, and it's such a rapidly evolving space. And I always say philanthropy is part art, part science, and there's always going to be new innovations, new ideas, new thoughts, new approaches, because we haven't nailed it. We haven't found and it's no one-size-fits-all kind of solution that will solve all of the world's issues. So I think one of the sectors that perhaps is the most innovative, and tech entrepreneurs will completely disagree with me, but I think it's the philanthropic sector. These social entrepreneurs who are coming up with fantastic solutions or initiatives or ideas or approaches, and then sort of others coming to take them to scale. I think we're not going to standardize it. I disagree.
And I do see that, of course, you try to standardize because then you have a model, you can replicate, you can scale up, you can have impact. Of course, this risk is there, but we have to work on it, and we have to better understand what exactly worked and why can we scale something or not. And that can be done by professionalizing it. And coming back to the first rebuttal, I mean, you need to channel your passion. You get more effective, and it gives you more pleasure if you can actually really have more impact with your passion. And at the end of the day, I think what we have to also get away from a bit is we're helping other people. Now we're working together with them to create that better world we all want to see. And for that you need certain models, but you also need the flexibility, the innovation to adapt those to different settings and different contexts. And maybe it worked 5 years ago and now the world changed. It doesn't work anymore. So you need to rethink all of that and remain flexible.
So if there is no other reactions, or any reactions from either Zoom or in class, I'll move on to the last question. Then we can also just open it, openly debate it, and take any questions you may have from the audience or on Zoom. We heard it today, like we're moving towards systemic philanthropy. We know the societies are getting digitalized. We know artificial intelligence, it's growing. We're talking about sustainable development goals, so kind of global challenges. Is it particularly important today to sort of get a training in philanthropy so that the future endeavors in philanthropy will be a bit more professional or structured? What are your impression. Let me start again with you, Tanya, for this last question.
I think it kind of builds on really to what we've been talking about. If we want to professionalize philanthropy, then we need to get some training in the key areas of philanthropy. So, a couple of examples. First, Giving Women, we offer training to our members and to the wider public in elements we find are key, such as I mentioned communication, I mentioned impact management, governance is another very, very important one. And at your course, at the DAS, the DAS, I love the way it's structured in all the different areas, and the module that I've been involved in is the impact management module, and I think it's really important because in that module we're sharing with the participants what we, the trainers, think are very important concepts for them to be aware of and be able to use. So, for example, when you're selecting a project that you want to fund, how will you know that project is creating the impact it says it wants to create? So we look at different ways of doing monitoring and evaluation, what kind of models there are for monitoring and evaluating, what kind of pitfalls there can be as well in terms of what you were saying, in terms of standardization and trying to be putting people and projects into straitjackets. And so all of these concepts we explore, in detail over 2 days. And it's not so much just the trainer, telling the participants, I hope you'd agree, what is, but really it's very much a sort of a discussion to enable this, to enable people to feel more, more competent and more competent in their philanthropic journey. So, yeah, I think it's super, super important. And you mentioned AI. I don't think AI can help in yes, I'm sure AI is fantastic already in monitoring and evaluation, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that more. But in terms of selecting your approach, the approach that works best for you and for your projects, I think there's definitely a human component there.
Thanks a lot. So Anthony, let's just keep going the same direction.
Thanks. Yeah, I think philanthropy today is so different from philanthropy 20 years ago. Right? So you need to keep up to date. And although AI is, people get scared with what AI could do, or what's the future of a human being. But I think it's very clear that if there's a human element in it, if you need to build relationship, if you need to have compassion, like empathy, I think this is where human is still irreplaceable, right? So I think to keep up with what's happening around the world, it's important to get the training because 20 years ago, when you talk about philanthropy, very few people will be talking about strategic philanthropy, very few people will be talking about the concepts like blended finance. All of those concepts are catching up, and it's good. It's not that you cannot learn on the job. You could, but if you receive a training in philanthropy, you can have an edge when, I can certainly, I hope you agree, I see a lot of people who are interested in joining the sector from different sectors. So I think having a training, it can help you to get up to speed and to see, and also help you understand what kind of role you can play in the sector, because there are many different ways to deploy your passion, your previous experience, right? And also tagging back a little bit to, the threat of standardization. I think it won't be a threat because everyone is coming into the program with their own experience, and so they will take away different things in the program. It's not that we're starting from scratch and it's like a factory or something. It's not like that. Yeah, that's
Thanks,
my
Anthony. And Renate, and then Chris for the final impressions.
Thanks. I'll be short in the interest of time, but I think one of the many aha moments I had really in the course was because I managed to bring all the past experiences, work experience that I had together and had to challenge my own thinking. Because of course I learned some things, I thought I've seen good concepts, but then came the decolonizing philanthropy aspect in it and really like, oh yeah. So to understand my role better, because I am in this privileged position, but I also come from that background, and I'm not going to change Africa. But I can work with them. I can work with people on the ground. We can look at regional philanthropy. So a training just offers you a forum to challenge your own thoughts. And it's good to get back into education, although it is scary, if you've been out of university for a while. But you made it really, really nice.
Thanks. Chris?
Thanks, and I'll keep it short as well. I think we should all, in every way, continuously learn. I think if we stop learning, then we become arrogant and think we know all the answers. And as I was saying before, that this philanthropy is incredibly complex and not easy and very diverse. So it's so important. And I think for us, in our role, speaking from my perspective, when we're educating philanthropists on how to be impactful philanthropists, we need to be educated ourselves and not get into a little bubble of thinking we know all the answers when we definitely don't. So we continuously train ourselves. I recently did a course in climate philanthropy, and because it's a new-ish space. It shouldn't be, but it is. So it's a tremendously important. And although Giuseppe didn't ask me, a plug for this course, I think what I really like about it, apart from Giuseppe, is in addition to, Giuseppe, is the richness of the different modules, and that it brings in people from different from different backgrounds from the field to teach. Quite often, when it comes to trainings in philanthropy that are out there, it's about the structuring or the tax side of it, which is part of it, but it's just the vehicle. The really complex part is what you do with that vehicle. So yeah.
Well, thanks so much. Now my ego is like to the roof. I first managed to bring people, and then all this nice comments. Well, thanks a lot. And maybe to add on this, what's really important, and I really like of the program myself as a teacher, is that compared to my traditional courses in bachelor's or master, with master students during these programs, there is people with a lot of experience, the participants themselves, and me as an instructor can basically every day of the class I can learn a lot from these alternative perspectives, and they're for sure much more experienced and knowledgeable than me in many other fields. So it's really interesting to see the bridges and connections that can be brought. I want to thank you everybody on Zoom, especially those who came in person, and the panel once again for being with us today, and for sure the Formation Continue, Center of Formation Continue for hosting us and for hosting this masterclass today. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, want to get in touch, please check the website or with the email. We're also available now outside for a couple of questions. If you want to discuss something, please come see us. Thank you again so much. Thank you very much to the panel again.